Hello, my high priestess key 333 family. This is the last of the universal laws and the spiritual astrology. All right, so this is the last, the 11th and the 12th, right? Where I'm just going to brush over the universal laws and what it means and what spiritual astrology signs, such as your zodiac, is attached to that universal law. All right, now getting into the 11th universal law, which is the law of rhythm. All right. We all need to know about the cycles of life, right? Which is the rhythms, right? The rhythm, the natural part of this universe is the rhythm, which also goes back to that vibrational energy as well. Okay. Um, but it's about the highs and the lows are a part of our natural rhythm family. Okay, we all should know this. In reference of the law of rhythm, is cycles are natural part, like I said. And it physically, you can think about seasons of the earth. Okay, so the seasons change with the rhythm of the universe. Okay, so remember that, it's all about growth. We definitely have to look at the law of rhythm as a regularity, like having something regulate itself in reference of the cycle, right? Everything operates in a cycle as well. Rhythm, okay, is definitely a part of that. So it's about the phases of the moon as well, with the rhythm of the universe. Okay, so the moon's phases, the seasons, all of that really interferes, and not interferes, but it interacts with every person in a human experience. Okay, this law teaches us everything in reference of the highs and the lows, the ebb and the flows, right? The rise and the falls, the goods and the bads, whatever it may be, the infinity loop that you keep going around, right? These are the cycles. Understanding this law helps us to go through the flow of life, though, realizing that it is cycles and seasons and moon phases and things of that sort, right? So understand that there is always highs and lows, right? And this goes back to what sign is attached to the law of rhythm, which is Cancer. Okay. So I'm going to talk about Cancer in the spiritual astrology, which won't go with the Western, the Vedic, or the true sidereal, because this is based off of what ancestors have brought to us. All right. These Cancers are the messengers of sin. Well, why do you say that? Because they tell us about all the sins that they carry for others, as well as others coming to Cancers to tell them about, or to have them carry the sins for them. That's why Cancers in the Western are looked at as the nurturers, the lovers, the emotional people, and so forth. And they always in the Western look at Cancers in reference of being sensitive and crying and moody. That's because they carrying all the sins of others and themselves. Okay. That's why, because they're the messenger of sins. And what does that mean? Because they are the ones that are across the waters. They brought all the sins across the water, across the firmament. Okay. And we'll get into more of that later. I'm just telling you guys. As well as in my spiritual family, we're taught that Cancers are more or less of, yeah, they're water, but it's more or less of coming across the waters, which makes them earth. So they're more or less a earth sign. That's why people get Cancer here on earth. And that's the disease from doing sins, family. And that's truly what Cancers mean. And we'll get into more of that later. Breaking generational curses, breaking generational sins, stopping the sins. That's how you actually prevail in reference of that, getting out of that cycle. See, that cycle is a cycle of sin. So it's not just everything that they tell you in these books that you can read, and they tell you in the Western to keep you unaligned and out of balance. See, the universal laws are the universal laws, but they have shifted them just like they've shifted everything else that you think you may be learning and thinking that may know without going within and making the connection to source, who is really going to give you the real, you see. And sometimes we have to realize that we have been deceived as a people, here on this earth. They couldn't give us all of the doctrines. They couldn't give us all of what we needed to know. That goes back to those Scorpios that's supposed to tell us about those lies. But also in reference of our Cancers, who's supposed to be the messenger and tell us about the sins and to get us out of that cycle of sin. See? And that we can ascend with working with those moon phases and these seasons. You see? Because when a Cancer has all of its wonderful attributes, they are the most spiritual of the batch. They are able to have major clairs and chakras. Heart chakra being on point, you know what I'm saying? To be able to be that nurturer, to be able to help somebody break a generational curse or to come out of the sins, right? They are the ones that, can help with fixing your sacral, your solar plexus, all these different chakras. But the main thing is, if Cancers are out of alignments, they could steal, kill, have addictions, right? Create more generational curses, do more abuse on people, their families, and so forth. That's because they're out of rhythm. You see? And they're stuck in the cycle of what? Sins. So that Cancers are the gods and the goddesses, but the Cancers are the fallen ones, the devils and the angels. But it's just all in reference of how you handle the sins that you are in and how you've come here in this lifetime as a Cancer with the law of rhythm. Okay? Now, let's move on, and I'll get more into that over on Patreon. Okay, I can put all of that here. But the 12th universal law is the law of gender, but in spiritual astrology and in the spiritual realm, it's looked at as the law of racism. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. See, they tell you in reference of it just being gender, is reference of it just being male and female, masculine and feminine. No, but it's also in reference of racism, which is all about being biased and judgmental and things of that sort, because life works best with unity. See, they don't want you to be united, so they don't mention the racism in the laws of the universe, but it is a part of it. And the gender. But the law of racism goes back to letting you know that is a universal law that aims to prohibit and eliminate racial discrimination. It is for everyone to be equal, family. Everybody. We don't look at race, color, nationality, or whatever it is. We look at everyone having equal rights and being free. And we also look at the person's soul. That is how you should judge someone's character, by their soul. That's how we judge people, by your soul. Are you soulless? Or what is your soul? Because your soul is your spirit, and that is eternal. So, the law of racism or the law of gender is about operating in unity. It is about Libra. And see, Libras, I have a lot to talk about with Libras, but we're going to get more into detail on my Patreon at allinthecards.com, ALLNKARDS, All in the Cards on Patreon. All right. And what I'm going to tell you about the law of gender and the law of racism with Libras, because Libras are the ones that are the messengers of judgment. My Libras get the brunt of the do all be all. They always get the end of the stick. Okay. And the Libras are connected to the law of racism, as you can see when I was saying they, because they're judged, right? That's why they're the messenger of judgment. Okay. Because they are the sacrifice, they are the offering, they are the altruistic, they are the black sheeps. You see? In actuality. But in the Western and everything else, they tell you they're the scales, and they're not. I can give you that's my odds. Okay. But Libras, it is not. Libras are actually, okay, there's not scales for Libras, but it's actually a lamb, because they are the black sheep. Now, this goes back to that law of racism and the law of gender for them. And the most that I'm going to tell you about this universal law that's attached to Libra family is I'm going to give you this gem here that my spiritual teacher taught us in reference of the laws of the universe and the spiritual astrology. And we'll go more into depth in reference of Libra and all the other signs that are attached to the universal laws that are not based off of probably what you're going to learn in any textbook around the world. Okay, is that Aries, which is number 7, actually stole Libra's spot that it was closest to the Most High. And that's why you'll always hear me say, Libras, what must be last shall be first. And Libras will always probably deal with some form of being judged, because that is what the universe has dealt them in reference of how they have shifted and manipulated of deception on this universe and then within this earth to let us be deceived. All right. So what I want you to also know is Libra is the only sign that they show you, which is the deception of not having an animal attached to their sign. Okay, because they carry the weight of all the others. That's why they gave them the scales. And I'm going to leave that right here for you to think about. So much love to you. And I will see you in the energy readings that will follow up per each sign. And I hope that you pay attention to your sun, moon, and rising, and you listen to the overall brush over of the universal laws that go with the spiritual astrology. And I actually did it the way it is lined up based off of the ancestors and the Most High. Now, as I stated, you may not resonate with this because you may not, know what the ancestors have actually given in reference of the true story of the zodiacs and why they even call them zodiacs, which sounds like what? Maniacs, right? But we'll get more into that on Patreon, all right? Much love to you. Thank you for joining me on this series of the spiritual astrology and the universal laws. Much love. Peace.